What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the Pika Pika Papa, and I am pumped to share this video with you today. So first off, we're going to be looking at Sword and Shield and how a lot of the prices have been moving month over month. We're going to be looking at how the aggregate value of those top 20 singles cards have been moving. We're going to be looking at how the booster box prices have been moving. We have been tracking several specific cards really for the last 4 or 5 months. So we're going to see what's going on there as well. And I'm going to tell you right now, the results of what has happened month over month is nothing short of phenomenal. But what's even more exciting than that to me is what has allowed us to have this video series as it is. So 2 years ago, 2 crazy years ago, I sat down and I was a little frustrated with TCGplayer.com because they only provided us with a 1-year price graph. And in my mind, that's like reading the last chapter of the book. You miss all the character development, the plot twists, and all the good stuff that goes along with it. So I decided I was going to create these Excel spreadsheets and I was going to warehouse the top 20 singles cards prices from all the sets from the Sun and Moon, the Sword and Shield, the XY, and the Scarlet and Violet era, right? And I do the same thing. I aggregate booster box prices, ETB, PC ETBs. And, I did all of that simply because I wanted to be able to have that information. But what I didn't realize was over the course of 2 years, it would give us incredible insights. By graphing these price movements over time, we would get to understand how cyclical this market can be. It can give us ideas of, hey, when is the market starting to downturn? But most importantly, when are things starting to flatten out, which can at times be a good indicator of future price appreciation. And we are going to see that in this video today. And again, I'm super excited. I have 2 years worth of data. In my mind, it's still not enough. I can't wait to continue to aggregate more. But when you see these patterns start to develop, I think we're going to learn a whole lot and hopefully you find a lot of value in it too. So first thing that I want to start off with is we have to look at last month's setup to understand where we are this month. So this is the exact numbers that we were looking at last month. On the left, you see the aggregate value of the top 20 singles cards from every set in Sword and Shield that had a booster box, right? 12 sets with a booster box, top 20 cards. So 240 cards, their aggregate value. And that value goes all the way back to September of 2023, right? And on the right, you can see the booster box prices. And I think it's important to see them side by side because you can see how the singles cards can be a little bit more cyclical, and you can see how booster boxes are a little bit more steady when it comes to their price appreciation. But the biggest thing that I wanted to call out and the most relevant point to see where the prices have moved month over month is this right here. What we have seen, at least for the last 2 years, and it's been a very interesting hobby over the last 2 years, so just because it's happened in the past doesn't mean it'll happen in the future, but what we have seen in the past is that the appreciation and the depreciation is very chunky, right? So you can see you had a block of 5 months when we first started doing this where prices were coming down. That was followed by 4 months where prices were going up. Then you can see we had another 4 months where prices were starting to come down. Then we had another 5-month period where prices were coming up. And the thing that was a big takeaway for me is if you look, this is where we were sitting at last month, okay? So we had seen that after 4 consecutive months of the prices coming down, last month it started to flatten out. And if you look at that, the aggregate value of the top 20 singles cards in the Sword and Shield space was only down 0.09% month over month. The total change in the value of those 240 cards was only $10 month over month. That is as directionally flat as it's going to get. And again, because of what we had seen in the past, because if we had seen these chunk movements, we said, listen, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but this could be an indicator that the market is settling down, or at best, maybe it's going to start to tick up a little bit in price. And so that's very important for us to talk about. And the next thing that I thought was really cool that we need to focus on is when we've seen the market turn around, this is what it's traditionally done. You can see the first turnaround in January of 2024 to February of 2024. The delta between those 2 months was relatively small, okay? So it went from negative 5.2% in those 240 cards to positive 1.69. So a pretty nice little smooth uptick there. But then you see in October of 2024 to November of 2024, there's a much bigger delta between those 2 months. So from negative 3.54% to positive 6.38%. So you can see that the upturn was much more aggressive. It went from a negative 3.5% in 1 month to a positive 6.38% the next month. So a very big jump in terms of price movements month over month. So when we look at August and we saw that it was starting to flatten out, the question that I had was, what is going to happen? Every month it's going to be uncharted territory, right? So I was like, what's going to happen? Is it going to spike up in price? Is it going to hold flat for a period of time? Like, what are we going to see? And I'm telling you, what we saw was absolutely phenomenal. Now, before I get into that, and again, we're going to talk about singles cards, and I'm going to show you the graphs of all this because graphs are a great way to kind of understand and see all of this information. But Before we get into that, I got to give my selfish plug because as you can see, we do a ton of work behind the scenes here at the Pika Pika Papa channel. So if you enjoy this, if you find value in it, if it helps you out at all, hit that subscribe button or give us a thumbs up. Those two small things go a very long way in helping my small channel out. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at what we actually saw. And as you can see down below, and I'm going to blow it up in just a minute, the price jump was absolutely insane. But my big takeaway is it was not just in the singles cards, right? You can see that it went from negative 0.09% directionally flat month over month from July to August to positive 22.64% in September. That is a huge jump in terms of aggregate value. Matter of fact, the price in September completely erases all of those months of negatives month over month over month. If you look at the aggregate value in March, the total value was $13,057. And if you look at it in September now, as we sit, it's $13,851. So you literally erased all of those 5 months of price declining just in a single month. Now, we're going to talk about singles cards. We're going to see where it comes from. A lot of it comes from a very few cards. But the biggest thing to take away from that is the chase cards are usually a leading indicator. The chase cards will take off first, and then they'll organically over the next couple months pull up some of the other cards. So we're going to talk about that today. I'm also going to do a whole nother video where I'm going to talk about some of those middle tier cards that I think the chase cards are going to pull up over time, but that's a different video for a different day. But the biggest thing here is look, up 22.64% in the singles card space, but the booster boxes are up 17.55% too. The booster boxes in Sword and Shield are absolutely crushing the game. And again, you can't draw a one-for-one comparison. Print runs were different. Collecting was different. You know, not a lot of people kept sealed collections back in the Sun and Moon era, but look at some of the Sun and Moon booster boxes. Remember, I keep that data points too. There's like 4 booster boxes in the Sun and Moon era that are now over $2,000 right now. So even though Sword and Shield booster boxes are aggressively going up, I still think they still have even more room to run, which is just crazy to say out loud. Now, the next thing that I wanted to show you guys, again, these line graphs really help kind of bring all of those numbers and makes it easier to digest in the brain. I love visual representations like this. So as you can see, the top one represents booster box price growth through last month. This does not include September. I'll show you September in just a minute, but you see a very, a little bit of undulation there in the booster box, but really steady eddy up and to the right. And you can see in November of 2024 is when this really started to get aggressive in terms of price appreciation. Now in the top 20 singles cards, very different looking graph, right? Still, if you were to trend line it out, still trend line up and to the right, still very steady growth, but it comes in a very different form. You hit these periods of where the market is very flat in terms of price appreciation, then it spikes, then it drops, then it flattens out, then it spikes, then it drops. We talk about that. We're always looking for those times in the hobbies. Those are the support lines. We do specific videos on those, but those can indicate great buying opportunities. As you can see, the best time to buy was 2 years ago, okay? But none of us have a time machine. So the other best time to buy is when the market is turning down right before we feel like it's going to click up. And what have we seen? When you look at these graphs for September, it's just wild. Look at how aggressive that top 20 singles card line moves. Now that we've added it in, what has happened month over month. Again, absolutely crazy to think. In the booster box, just because booster boxes have done so well, it doesn't look as aggressive, but that's still a very aggressive swing up. But I just can't stop looking at that top 20 singles card graph and how crazy that price spike is. Again, in a series of 1 month, you have erased all of those negative months, and you have now set a new all-time high for the aggregate value of the top 20 singles cards from every set that is a booster box in Sword and Shield. Wild stuff here, super exciting. I'm a big Sword and Shield guy, so I love to see stuff like this. Now, the next important thing is, where did all of this come from? So the beauty of this series is I do it every single month, and we usually look at the same card. So these are the exact 3 cards that we had highlighted in last month's video, and we called out a couple of things. So first off, we talked about the Gengar and the Giratina down there, and the fact that these are probably 2 of the biggest chase cards outside of the Umbreon in the Sword and Shield space, and the fact that they had started to flatten out in price and starting to just beginning to see an uptick in price, right? Again, we saw that the aggregate value was pretty much flat. We saw that these were starting to move. I'll never tell you when to buy or sell, but it certainly felt like this might be the beginning of these cards to go on a little bit of a run. And then the Lugia card jumped big, you know what I mean? Like, it's a strong thing. Silver Tempest, as far as I'm concerned, is a set which was kind of overlooked in the Sword and Shield era. It was in stock for a long time at the Pokemon Center. When it finally went out of stock, guess what? The market was in the middle of a bit of a downturn. So Silver Tempest was kind of beat down, but this Lugia card had performed really well. Now, let's see where they're at this month compared to where they were. So kind of sear those images into your brain and look at where we're at right now. It has been incredible in terms of the price growth of all three of these cards month over month. That Gengar is now up to $745. It is incredible. It is out of this world. It is just mind-blowing to think about how high this card has jumped month over month. The Giratina there is all the way up at $590, and the Lugia has finally broken the $400 price point, coming in at $416. So just really, really cool stuff. Really glad we were able to talk about them last month, and it's fascinating to see how it's all worked out now. The next card we talked about ad nauseum, we gave this card its whole slide last month, and that is the Umbreon, and that is because it was down significantly off that $1,700 price point that we had seen 6 months ago, right? It was all the way down to $1,350, and this is a oversimplification, but I say it a lot. There's only two things that will happen. It will either never hit an all-time high again, or it will. And when you think about how excited the hobby is right now and how much everybody loves it and how just feverish with the supply and demand being out of whack, like we talked about this last month, $1,350. I certainly don't have it to spend on a singles card, but if you're just talking about looking at the card from this type of view, it felt like a very approachable point because the market was going to turn around and we felt like this card was going to do really well. Again, this card was destined to hit an all-time high again. And what have we seen month over month? Just a ridiculous price spike all the way up to $2,130. Now, on Sunday, I do a video where I look at the biggest price spikes week over week. That's data that comes straight from TCG Player. I'm not going to beat into this one too much because on that Sunday video, this card is featured and we're going to be talking about that. But as you can see, there's a lot of interesting factors that led to this big price spike, which might mean it's going to hold on to that or it might not. So a lot to unpack. Again, we're going to talk about that on Sunday, but it is very important to note too that a lot of the price spike that we saw in that aggregate value came from one single card, which is this Umbreon right here. So I thought it was interesting to look at some of the cards that are outside of the big three, outside of the Gengar, outside of the Giratina, outside of the Umbreon card, right? Like each of these cards is a chase card from the set that they come from. So in their own right, they are very special. But again, it's very important not just to stare at the biggest cards from a generation, but to try and look at how some of the other ones are performing as well. So you got the Blaziken from Chilling Reign. Listen, if you ask 100 kids on the street, I'm not sure how many of them would say Blaziken is their favorite Pokemon, but I guarantee that if you ask 100 kids on the street what their favorite Pokemon is, you would hear Charizard a lot. So you got Charizard from Brilliant Stars down there. Then you got another one from Champion's Path. And Brilliant Stars is a set that I've been super bullish on for a very long time. I felt like it was going to have the opportunity to be one of the better sets in the whole generation. Chilling Reign was outperforming it for a long time, and I just kept saying I think Brilliant Stars is going to overtake it. We're finally starting to see that come to fruition. It's not just the Charizard. There's a lot of awesome cards in there. But again, when you look at all three of these cards and look at what they were doing, you know, the Charizard card right there was at like $218. Blaziken was at $350. And then the Charizard from Champion's Path was at $216. You know, they were just kind of plugging along. And then you see what has happened again month over month. The Charizard has absolutely crushed it. It's up to $324 from Brilliant Stars. Now the Blaziken has remained relatively flat, okay? And that doesn't mean that it's not going to pop off in the future. A lot of times the bigger name cards, the bigger chase cards are a leading indicator. They pop first, then some of these other cards will follow suit. So don't sleep on the Blaziken. It could actually be a buying opportunity if you're in the market for that card. But even the Charizard from Champion's Path, right? There's like 16,500 of these in PSA 10 holders. Even that card, you know, has seen pretty significant growth up to $242. So that's it. That's what's been going on in Sword and Shield. It's been a ton of fun. I can't wait to continue to do this for you guys. I truly think there's a lot of value in it. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have fun. If you did, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up. Those two small things go a long way in helping my small channel out. Can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Most importantly, I hope you have an epic rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon, everybody. See ya. Bye.